Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Barrens Chat Podcast. I'm Sod, and with me tonight is my co-host, Guck. This is a podcast about World of Warcraft by two guys who play it. We are 1 week into the launch of Shadowlands. Renown has been gained, dungeons have been cleared, Torghast has been run, Bane has been rescued. Everybody's level 60, well, at least us. And this expansion has been a wild ride. It has been awesome. What a first week. I think we're going to start talking about the launch, obviously. Guck, how did it go? How was the launch for you and the leveling experience?
The start of Shadowlands was a little bit bumpy. What I remember was everyone was standing right outside of Gromash Hold, and you weren't allowed to get on mounts, but that didn't prevent people from throwing out as many AoE animations as they could. And then it took a while for Mograine to show up. People had to talk to him. He had to walk over and put up the portal. So a lot of people had to wait differing amounts of time there in Orgrimmar. But after that point, we got into the Maw, did that Maw scenario, and that was actually pretty fast. I feel like we got almost everyone in our leveling group together really quick. We had one person who was like in a different shard or something that had happened when we started, but it all got sorted out to work by the time we got to Bastion, and it was just great. We had so many people on Discord. We had 31 guildies on getting leveled up together. It was phenomenal. There was that small hiccup for the turnover, and I think we spent maybe 15 minutes waiting through the lag in Orgrimmar before we really got into Shadowlands. So I think that's a really smooth transition. The start night was obviously all about leveling, and for most of us who were using AAP, that Azeroth Autopilot add-on, I think the general consensus was you hit 60 in Revendreth and then still have to finish Revendreth, and that was a bit annoying.
Yeah, it seemed like they updated the numbers probably last minute and changed it. I'm assuming Azeroth Autopilot probably had it set on that last beta build and then didn't get to change the route before the launch happened. Now, like, obviously with the launch, like, everybody knew there was going to be lag, right? There was lag with the launch of BFA, and now this expansion, which had, I think, more pre-sales than any expansion prior. We knew there was going to be lag. It was a worldwide launch. Expected some issues. We had lag. I got into the Maw relatively quickly. I had a group of 5. We all ran Azeroth Autopilot. We were fortunate to get into Icecrown pretty quick, and then get into the Maw. And then we had one of our guys DC'd and had trouble getting back in, so that slowed us down by roughly 10-15 minutes or so. And then we were back to smooth sailing, following the route in Azeroth Autopilot. I watched all the cutscenes later on in the week. But overall, I would say for a launch event and being on a big server like we are, I would call that very smooth. I think Draenor in EU was down for a long time. But overall, everybody expects hiccups to go with the launch events just due to past history. But I would say this one went very well, given the circumstances of the worldwide launch.
Yeah, thinking about that, actually, that reminded me, I think maybe 1 in 5 people experienced some form of just technical barrier that prevented gameplay for a little while. Once we were in Bastion, I remember a bunch of us were on a flight path. 2 of the guys got knocked off the flight path and died from fall damage, and I was actually stuck pacified. I ended up landing where the flight path was taking us, pacified, couldn't move, couldn't hearth, couldn't do anything. And then I force logged out because it also wouldn't let me log out of the game. And it took about 30 minutes to get back in. And I was luckily still in the same spot, didn't lose any progress. There wasn't any weird rollback or anything like that, but just a minor technical impediment that got in my way. I think probably 20%, 1 in 5 people dealt with something like that. But still, I mean, I got to 60 that night. I feel like everyone who wanted to could have gotten to 60 that night without any major problem. So yeah, all in all, a great launch.
Yeah, and so you got 60 in one night. I got 60 on Tuesday night, so I got 60 roughly like 24 hours after the launch. What did you think about the campaign? I know you probably, like me, skipped a lot of the cutscenes and a lot of the lore. What did you think about it? Like, what were your thoughts?
I thought it was good. I think that originally my issue was going to be with stability and war mode and issues with all of those things because we were being funneled into the same zone as the Alliance, as everyone else. And it was fine. I mean, honestly, we're on Mal'Ganis, and I think our Mal'Ganis shards in war mode were just entirely Horde dominated. I got out well ahead of them, and I think I was ahead of Alliance the whole time, if there were shards with Alliance on them, but because I just didn't see them. The story was good. I didn't really follow it while we were leveling. I just kind of skipped through things to get through faster, but I have since gone onto YouTube and looked everything up. I like it. I think the story is good because it's starting us off with something new that is supposed to be new. It's not taking something old and then pretending like it's new. Kind of like with BFA, we had Kultiris and Zandalar, which have in-game lore and in-game history. And it felt kind of like bolted on. It's like, okay, these things are a part of the history. Don't you remember it? Like, you know, here were trolls. Here are the old trolls. Here are all these old troll like nostalgia things. And in Kultiris, it's like, here are the other types of humans. And then it got really bad with Mechanomes and Vulpira. I mean, BFA, let this be the last time we have to talk about it. I feel like even with that bit of attached history, it was just kind of a bolted on experience. Thinking about like the story and the progression of WoW, the events of BFA were kind of like tangential, and we're seeing how right immediately at the start of Shadowlands, we're getting right into the end of Legion. So it feels now like BFA almost didn't even happen. Aside from, you know, releasing N'Zoth, and we're not even certain how that ties into things. I'm hoping to see something N'Zoth related in the Shadowlands, some form of dead old god, you know, union or something. You know, but really what we saw is Ardenweald and, well, I guess largely just Ardenweald, the end of Legion with Ysera and essentially Argus's death. That's a huge reveal. I think we can all agree, if you've looked at the cinematic, that red spike that hits the Arbiter of Souls, I believe she's called, and turns her off is probably when we as raiders killed Argus, and that death moved it into the Shadowlands and shut off the Arbiter and stopped all of this. So it does feel like we basically, we did a bunch of lore stuff in Legion, did a 90-degree turn to go do some other stuff on these unexplored islands that we knew existed but somehow didn't know where they were, and then find them. And now we're back to Azeroth on the main storyline, just in a different plane of existence now in the Shadowlands. It's weird. It's weird to say the least, but I like it. I think the individual stories in each of the zones are well made for that zone. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of get more into it. I want to see how we deal with Denathrius's deal, right? That cutscene is massive, and if you guys haven't seen it, it's great. Like, Denathrius has been collecting all of this anima, and it's purely to just dump it into the maw and give it to the jailer. And you see that in a cinematic, and that massive trail of red anima flowing into the maw, that's what that is. That's why we're going to Castle Nathria as the first raid. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of lore out there. It's kind of exciting. How much of it have you gotten into yet?
So I watch all the cutscenes. I think it's cool. I was saying today to somebody, it's like the only thing we have left from BFA that is like a reminder of that terrible expansion is the guild interface and the communities tab and the global cooldown issues that still linger. Other than that, BFA is gone, and I couldn't be more happy about that. The story, I'm not a huge lore guy, but I have like paid attention, watched all the cutscenes. So I hated Maldraxxus while leveling through it, and then I watched all the cutscenes, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So I think like maybe if I had like taken my time and paid attention to the story and what was going on, I think Maldraxxus probably would have been one of my favorite zones.
Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of tempted to go back and level normally just to actually experience the voice acting, the campaign, the lore, like the reveals and all of the things as intended when I go back and level up my Death Knight.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I eventually will again, not right now. I do have multiple level 60s, and I have 2 level 60s, and I started a third character as well. I did Threads of Fate. I learned some things about it. It's definitely slower than the campaign, but I prefer it because eventually I'll do the campaign again. But I already did the campaign this week, so who the hell wants to go through that again? I'm not really that big of a masochist, so I ran through Threads of Fate. I did some dungeon grinding. I did some world quests. I did like random things that I felt like doing while leveling. I got a lot of herbs and ore, and I really enjoy Threads of Fate. Even though it's not the most efficient way, I have definitely found it rather enjoyable. Have you started a second character yet?
Not yet. I just have been so focused on gold and economy and like just professions and gear and other crazy stuff that we'll get into later in the episode that I haven't really been too concerned. I thought that maybe I would go for it over the weekend, but I just don't feel like it's super necessary right now. I feel like with the catch-up mechanics, with Renown and Soul Ash working as it works, I don't feel the pressure to get this alt ready as soon as possible. It's going to be something that I do when I feel like doing it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I will say this, like, the maintenance on maintaining the characters is like night and day compared to how it was in Legion and Battle for Azeroth, and it's nice. It allows you to play the game how you want to play. It allows you to do other content without feeling like you're wasting your time, especially early on in the expansion when every little power creep matters. It felt really good, and we figured that out this week when we spent time doing a lot of those farms. We were very heavily economically focused, I would say, this week, and you made out like a bandit. You had a lot of luck. I did not have as much, but I did pretty well as well, just with my professions and stuff like that. Would you get 5 BOEs in the first week?
Yeah, I got 5 epic BOEs in the first week. I sold 6 Mythic Zero dungeon carries. And as a part of doing that BOE farm, 100 to 200k worth of cloth before the cloth market exploded. So, I made off like an absolute bandit. And you did exactly what we were talking about before Shadowlands started, getting geared and focused on Inscription to make those Darkmoon decks. Those Darkmoon decks in the first week make crazy boatloads of cash because trinkets are not only in demand, but it's a high item level for the first week before your raid gear starts coming in. So people before raid are super interested in getting those decks for their trinkets. And you managed to do what we talked about, getting that set up and going before the market crashes and everyone else starts doing Inscription.
Yeah, so I got pretty fortunate. I leveled Inscription. I spent roughly, call it 300,000 gold leveling it, and I made several Dark Moon decks. I didn't go crazy. A lot of people were going crazy. I sold a few. I gave myself one. I gave a lot of guild members trinkets at a discount. I even gave some away for free to some guild members. And overall, I really only spent money leveling up Inscription. I probably was down like 100,000 gold. And to be honest, I was giving myself like a 1 million gold budget at the start of this expansion to raid prep. And I was like even, so I was like, I guess I'll just buy some BOEs. So last night I made an investment in my Warlock. I bought a couple BOEs. I still have to buy some gems and some enchants, but I'm going to wait till after I finish my Mythic Zeros clears this week to round out my gear and apply my gems and enchants and be raid ready for Tuesday. But it's, it's been good. I'm thinking about spending money on my alt for BOEs too, because I've been so fortunate with gold that, why not? And just to have that raid ready, but our guild doesn't have that many locks, so I'll probably only play that at least early on. And it's been great. And it's like crazy. Like we talk about it all week. We even, had a lot of new faces in the guild, like people that we met that have been really good community members. And we've been doing content outside of like this end game grindy stuff, like just doing whatever and like things that we find fun. Like I did some BGs last night and that was great and things like that. And it's incredible when you don't have this, like when you're not forced into doing island expeditions and things like that, like how much fun this game can be. I can't remember the last time I had this much fun. To be fair, I did enjoy the start of BFA a lot, but it quickly fell off. And I don't know if Shadowlands is going to fall off. I'm really enjoying myself.
Yeah, the steep cliff of fall off for fun after BFA started was a very real thing. Like immediately we started to feel the pressure of, oh wait, these are chores. This is homework. And now sometimes, like I actually at the start of Shadowlands, I was doing stuff and I was like, wait a minute. I don't have to do this. This doesn't give me that much of a reward. I don't really need 100 more anima. Like, I don't have to do this. And I was just like thinking about it, like, wow, I really only have to do Torghast every week. I have to get gear through any way that I want because gear is important again. And I got to do some Maw stuff. I've got to do Maw dailies to get a little bit of rep, get that Stygia. And then the rest of the stuff, I'm deciding what I want to do. I'm also, I volunteered to be the guild chef. So that means every day I'm clearing the board in Revendreth, including the pet battles, right? So I'm doing that because I want to get the upgraded feast. I'm doing, my not world quests, the emissaries, which are now the callings. I can do those in a dungeon if I want to, or I can do them out farming. Sometimes there's like a fishing world quest or a skinning world quest or something like that. And you can go and do those things and find better ways to complete your calling than just being forced to do these pointless world quests. It's honestly, I feel like gear being important and chores being on an absolute minimum is really going to be healthy for the longevity of this expansion. And I really am like starting to strongly believe in this kind of phasic, one expansion is good, the next expansion is bad, the next expansion is good mentality, where it's like, WoD, everyone hated, Legion, I loved, BFA, everyone hated, Shadowlands, I'm hoping everyone loves it.
Yeah, and like they finally like given the game back to the people and let them decide how they want to play it, and I think they're going to be rewarded in the long run with like a lot of players continuing to play. I think that is going to be an effective strategy going forward, and I hope they build on this and continue to make good improvements. How about covenants? Like, what did you picked your best covenant, for the most productive covenant for your class and spec? I did as well on my main, and I did not do so on my second character, but I'll get into why I picked the covenant I did on my second character. What are your thoughts on them? Like, how do you feel about your Kyrian, right? So how do you feel about that and the covenant ability?
So initially I was not excited to go Kyrian. I thought Bastion was kind of lame. I didn't really think I'd like the aesthetic. I didn't think I'd like the idea of the Kyrian and like the redemption and renown, like absolving yourself of your past self and becoming this like nameless Kyrian type thing. I wasn't super huge about it, but after playing and leveling, I feel like Bastion might be my favorite zone, and all of the other zones kind of look sort of similar. They're all dark. 3 of the zones are dark and kind of dingy and kind of gloomy, and then Bastion is just light and open and like rolling hills and plains, and it's like yellows and blues. I like the palette. I like the design. I'm a huge fan of it now. I'm glad that my like the meta pick, the one that's best for Brewmasters, is also one that I enjoy. Maldraxxus, I think, is a great zone. If I could pick one, I think I would have picked Necrolords, just because I like that kind of grimy Scourge aesthetic. So when I level up my Death Knight, I think I might go Necrolords, but then again, I might go Venthyr just for that mobility, because, man, that is so useful on a Blood DK, being able to just port like that through the door. So we'll see, but yeah, I like the Covenants a lot more than I expected to like them. I was kind of worried that this would feel just like, a worse version of the Legion artifact weapon or something like that, and I don't feel that way yet. The one thing that I'm still reluctant about with Covenants, and I'm sure this one is going to be one of the big problems, it's going to be conduits. I'm going to probably very shortly get frustrated with how few conduits I have, the right conduit, the right eye level of the conduit. I think that's going to be the next problem. Relics worked in Legion because we had a lot of opportunities to get drops, and relics were a part of those drops. Now it seems like drops are harder to get, and with conduits being their own kind of separate thing, you could get unlucky and not get conduits for a while, and then when you do, you're getting the wrong specs conduits. So that's going to be the one big sticking point on Covenants that I don't think I will like in a few weeks. It's going to be those conduits.
I've been very fortunate early because I got one of my best in slot conduits, and I don't have to worry about that right now going into the raid. Obviously, like, I'm nowhere near able to fill up the conduit slots that I have on my Soulbind, but I can definitely see it being frustrating. I haven't gotten a good conduit on my alt, so I kind of see where that's coming from. I did have a couple good world quests up for conduits too that I picked up and worked out for me, and then I ended up getting a good drop in a Mythic 0. I do like that they're on their loot table, because in Legion I remember it being a huge bummer, like when you get a relic instead of getting loot. You know what I mean? Like if you don't need the relic. So I like that conduits are on their own table, and hopefully if you're not looking for a conduit and you get one, it doesn't ruin your shot at loot on the next boss or on that boss either. I think that is a good adjustment, and I hope that like maybe there's some bad luck protection in there to kind of make it easier. It would definitely be really frustrating if like you go into week 1 of the Mythic raid tier and you're struggling to find a good conduit, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. However, like, I shouldn't be complaining because I got really good luck. Right now, I'm 179 item level in the bag, but that's because I've got 2 Dark Moon trinkets that I can't equip together. So my base is 176. I have my best in slot legendary recipe. I am a leather worker, and I can already craft rank 2, which is the maximum for the slot that I'm going to put this legendary on. So, I mean, I'm kind of set. I'm really set up for weeks, 1 through 3 of raid. I'll have the soul ash, I'll have the crafts, I'll have everything I need. I just need the time. I need the weeklies to reset so that I can get there. So I'm feeling pretty set.
Yeah, and what did you think? You were really excited about Torghast coming into the expansion. How did your first week go? Like, what did you think about it? Do you have any complaints? Did you like it?
No complaints. I mean, right now we're forced into the introductory phase of Torghast where people are just getting to know what it is. Because I already have a understanding of games like this. I've played Risk of Rain, Binding of Isaac, whatever. And I knew what I was getting into, right? So I had fun. I enjoyed it. I knew we were just doing something that was temporary. You know, this isn't the challenge mode. This isn't the hard part. This is literally just complete it and get it over with. Some groups I heard struggled in layer 3. I think that's fine. I think that's okay. I personally did not. We didn't really hit any walls besides Chad, who I was running with, just running into traps and killing himself, which was fine. We still completed it, but that was our only hiccup, was essentially just not being super aware of the setup of Soul Forges. And I think the other one was Upper Reaches. Upper Reaches was really good. That's the base floor. That's the one that if you have an opportunity to push to unlock other layers, that's the one you should do. And that's what I wish we had done. We did 3 layers of Soul Forges and then 1 of Upper Reaches, and I was just like, ugh. I wish we had done 3 of Upper Reaches and just 1 of Soul Forge. Soul Forge, it's like cramped hallways. There's these flame traps everywhere. You have to pull everything. And Upper Reaches, you can skip so much. As far as what I was expecting, I think this is exactly what I expected. I wanted to see more powers drop. A part of what's fun with these roguelike games is that a lot of powers drop, and you really quickly start snowballing in one direction based on the powers you're selecting. So I would have liked to see more powers drop, but then again, I was running these purely just to get from point A to point B. I wasn't running them to like build up powers and snowball over the last boss. I was just like, okay, how quick can I get through Torghast?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna reserve judgment until we start doing layer 8. Excuse me. Layer 8 is gonna be where Torghast is really judged.
So that's how I was. I will say this: I hated Torghast on my Warlock as Affliction, and I didn't hate it as much as Destruction, but I still hated it. I guess Demonology is the way to go, but I hate that spec. I'm probably the only person that doesn't want to play Demonology ever. So I hated Torghast on my Warlock. When I put it on my Death Knight, totally different story. I really enjoyed it. Layer 3 was hard because I wasn't very geared, and I was running it with another guy who wasn't very geared. We still got through it without failing, but it certainly had its share of challenges for us, and it was kind of nice being able to like game plan through the dungeon or the tower and try to figure out how to like problem solve these bosses and these obstacles that were in our way. So it was cool. It was fun. It was nice that like you got to experience your class being played differently. It's kind of a bummer when you're doing like 7k DPS on the last boss on floor 6, and then you go back to doing your normal damage without all those buffs. That was a little bit of a buzzkill, but overall I would say it's a success. It's nice because I didn't feel like I had to grind it all week like I initially thought I was going to have to. And typically I would hammer them for, throttling us, but I liked the pace of the week overall, just the direction that it went, clearing all 8 dungeons on 2 characters on Mythic, and then doing all, I guess, 6 layers of Torghast. You really only have to do 4 runs, though. And all 4 runs of Torghast, I thought that was great. I couldn't be more pleased with how the first week has gone.
Yeah, I think the word that you're hitting is the one thing that we should have focused on is pacing, and they're pacing the release pretty well. I obviously want to have more, but that's a good thing. I like wanting to have more. I don't think a lot of people thought this after starting BFA. It wasn't like, ooh, I can't wait to do island expeditions again next week. I can't wait to do the next Warfront. That never happened. But right now, I think a lot of people, they're eager to get in and do Torghast. Some probably just for the Soul Ash, which is fine because player power. That's the cornerstone of the game. But still, like, the idea of wanting to come back next week to play what's coming up is so huge right now. There's Torghast, new layers of Torghast, there's the new season of Mythic Plus, there's the raid, and all of that is tied to legitimate player power increases because gear matters again. You're going to be able to control the way that you gear with your great vault, the weekly vault that you can choose now. And all of these things are just like coming down this pipeline in a really well designed way. I will give it to Blizzard. It sucks that it's kind of limited, but the fact that we're going to get another 3 layers of Torghast in Heroic Week and then the final 3 during Mythic Week, and that really does pace it out. It prevents over grinding the game. And until we get to the point where the Mythic season starts, and then boom, it's going to be off to the races, just grinding Mythic pluses and doing your Torghast runs weekly with the full 8 layers available. It's going to be amazing. I'm excited for the way they've paced it, and I'm hoping that it translates into the longevity of the expansion as a whole.
Yeah, and honestly too, the level pacing was unbelievable on night 1. Like, I was probably 5 hours in. I didn't feel like I was playing for 5 hours, and even leveling my second character, I felt like that went very well too. Like the pacing just in general just feels really good, and I think that's something that is probably going to go maybe not spoken about or certainly be underrated. I think that was great. Next week or tomorrow we have the reset. We have 2 different wings of Torghast open, right? And we have the Mythic Zero resets, and you'll be able to progress your Renown and your Covenant campaign more. That's probably like, what do you think? Like 10 hours of gameplay maybe over the course of the week?
Yeah, coming with the reset, it's going to be basically like what we did after we dinged this week. 2 different cell blocks, so we won't have Upper Reaches and Soul Forge. We'll probably have 2 different ones. And that will be another 4 runs. Actually, no. There's only going to be 2 runs of Torghast next week because we won't have any new layers. Everyone already has Layer 3 unlocked. So you'll run Layer 3 of both cell blocks. You'll just have to do 2 Torghast runs. And then your 8 Mythic Zeros and the Callings and your daily Maw runs. I think a daily Maw run takes less than an hour for sure, especially if you have the waypoints established with that, I forget what they're called. They're like unstable rifts or something like that allows you to teleport through the Maw. I get my Maw stuff down in like 30 minutes, especially if you can hitch a ride on those mounted guys. You kill the mounted Maw Sworn and then you take his mount. You jack his ride like it's GTA.
I did not know that there was waypoints in the Maw.
Yes, there are. You have to unlock them with Venari. You have to pay for one of the permanent Maw upgrades that allows you to do that. And I only bought that, and I'm saving the rest of my Stygia.
So I bought the Cipher of Relocation so I could port back to Venari quick.
Yeah, that's a good one for when you finish your dailies and you're on the other side of Torghast. You can just hit that. I like to hitch a ride on a mount, get out to the first quest to do that, try to find either a Rift Stone or another mount to go to the second quest to do that. The day that I did Wrath of the Jailer, it was right by a daily quest, so I just stuck around and I did that. And then you hit the Venari warp, you go back, you turn everything in, and your Maw daily can be done in probably a half hour. So it's really not that much. There is not that much stuff you have to do next week. 2 Torghast runs, 8 Mythic Zeros, and like what? A half hour a day in the Maw? It's nothing. And then Callings.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning, like, if you miss a day in the Maw, not the end of the world, right? Like, if you're pushing world first, like, yeah, you're probably doing it every day. You probably need the gem slot. There's certainly good reason for it, but I've missed a day here and there, not the end of the world. I've gotten lucky. I got a couple gem slots on my gear, and worst case scenario, maybe I'm down one socket compared to everybody else on raid night. That's maybe 1%, probably not even 1% extra damage. Not the end of the world if you miss a Maw daily and you're trying to push like ahead of the curve, or like us, a later on cutting edge kill.
Yeah, but overall, I think this next week will be a pretty quiet week. It's the calm before the storm, really. People are going to be fully caught up on professions. People are going to be grinding. I think the market is going to be the big thing to pay attention to next week. Now that we're kind of towards the end of the episode, Some of you may be wondering how I got 5 epics in the course of basically one day of play, 2 farm sessions. What you want to do if you're trying to make money and strictly make money, you want to look for the custom groups that have a 2x4 tag. And then whether you're war mode on or off, it doesn't matter. I would suggest war mode off so that you don't have to compete with Alliance for tags. Or honestly, war mode on, it doesn't really matter. It depends on your shard. What really matters is your shard. But you look for a 2x4 group with the appropriate war mode, and then you'll see Ardenweald and Maldraxxus. There are 2 different spots, a spot in Maldraxxus and a spot in Ardenweald, where there are just massive hyper spawns, where essentially because of the way the game is set up, there needs to be a certain number of mobs up in a certain area, and if you kill them quickly enough, you will just continually farm these mobs, and eventually you'll farm enough of them that they will drop an epic, right? The epics drop 1 in 4,000 mobs, you'll say. Maybe 1 in 4,000. A very low percentage. In these farms, you will get potentially 4,000 mob kills an hour. So the idea here is that you park yourself, you just have people pulling onto a Brewmaster Monk taunt statue or a tank just taunting and grabbing threat, and you farm just constantly getting kills, just brute forcing RNG to hopefully get a purple, and it does work. It worked very fast the first few days. I got a lot of epics. I did it for 3 hours today, and I got 0 epics. So it's a high risk, high reward type of thing. A good thing is you'll probably also be getting a lot of cloth, but the cloth market has become saturated because of this. Lightless silk prices have tanked. Shrouded cloth, I think, is still kind of cheap. But it's all about those epics, and that's how you do it. So those of you who actually listened all the way to the end, look for those custom groups, those 2x4s with your war mode on or off, and then go grind those. You want to be in one of those groups of 4 so that everyone can get tags, and then you just farm. And that's how I made upwards of 800k so far in Shadowlands.
Yeah, and honestly, I was there for, not all the farming, but a lot of it. I didn't have any luck. I did do it on one of my characters that had tailoring, and I got an absolutely disgusting amount of cloth. So much so that I probably could have leveled tailoring from 0 to cap probably 4 or 5 times over. So if that's something you're thinking about doing, certainly a good idea, certainly worth your time. If you're strapped for cash, it's not bad. Even if you don't get in, a BoE, you're still looking at, 50,000 gold, give or take. You vendor a lot of the grays. You can vendor the greens if you want. You can disenchant them. I don't think the disenchant value is that high, but it's certainly something that's available. And it's great. Like, it'll fund your repairs for a long time coming. Maybe you can buy that BoE that you wanted if you didn't get lucky and get a drop. So that's certainly, a lot of good stuff there, and very easy money. It's really just committing the time. If you have 2 monitors, throw Netflix up and get going on it. I mean, that's pretty much what I do, unless we have a bunch of people in Discord hanging out, which we did, and that was great. I haven't had this much fun on WoW in a long time, and I think this is great, and I think this is really, they did an unbelievable job, especially given the fact that they developed a lot of this game while working from home on quarantine. And I'm very excited to see what the raid launch brings.
Stellar, anything else that we should be talking about this first week?
Nope, that's it for me, man.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, to all of you listening, thanks again, as always. We appreciate it. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. If you make it this far, hit us up on Twitter at Barrens Chat Pod, at SaudiLOL, at GuckyMan. All of our other information is on the website barenschat.podbean.com. And we will see you in the next one.